Hottie, it's crazy for me to think that a year ago, I barely even knew what CBD is or does, much less the remarkable range of products our presenting sponsor, Floyd's of Leadville, has.
Yeah, same here, Fatty. In fact, you know what? I put some Floyd's of Leadville balm on my legs right before recording the show, so I'm ready to go. Relaxed, ready to do a podcast. And I'd say I use Floyd's CBD products more or less every single day.
Yeah, they are that good. Both the Hammer and I have really made them a big part of our training, and especially of our recovery routine. You know, I think the product I like and use most often, the one I go to after every hard ride, is Floyd's Recovery Protein Mix.
Sure, even without the 5 milligrams of CBD per serving, it'd be a premium product. 8.5 grams of BCAAs per serving, non-GMO 27 gram of protein, and only 10 grams of carbs. So it's not like you're loading up with sugar after your ride.
Yeah, which is important. I'm not looking to reload up sugar. I just want to get some protein in me. Anyway, let's share some of that Floyd's love with our listeners. We're going to do some Floyd's of Leadville giveaways in the next few episodes. For this first one, we're going to give away 2 bags of this recovery protein that we both like so much, one of vanilla, one of chocolate, along with 2 bags of Floyd's hydration fuel. That's a $160 prize for someone.
Yeah, we're going to draw one listener's name at random, and it's super easy to register. Just go to bit.ly, bit.ly/Floyd's drawing and fill out that form. And do it right away, because by entering now, you're not just registered for this drawing, but for the others we've got coming up throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, it's also worth noting that Floyd's of Leadville uses only CBD that is extracted using the finest state-of-the-art methods that ensure the highest quality and purity in all their products, with third-party testing for purity and potency.
And that Floyd's of Leadville products are natural, locally sourced, and use no preservatives or additives. All these benefits come without the side effects of pharmaceuticals or the psychoactive components of marijuana.
Yeah, it's also worth noting that both the recovery and the drink mix use the CBD isolate, which means that there's no THC in there whatsoever. So nothing to worry about if you are THC averse for whatever reason at all.
Be sure to check out Floyd's of Leadville, our presenting sponsor, at floydsofleadville.com and use the code FATTY at checkout for a 15% discount on your first 2 orders. And one more time, be sure to register for this prize by going to bit.ly, bit.ly/Floyd's drawing.
And thanks, Floyd's of Leadville, for sponsoring the show.
3, 2, 1.
Leadville, the podcast for the 100-mile mountain bike race presented by Floyd's of Leadville. This is Season 2, Episode 17 of the show that breaks down, builds up, gets you ready, and freaks you out for the highest and hardest one-day mountain bike race in the country.
And I'm actually headed back to Leadville in just about 24 hours, Hottie. I'm taking a break from packing to record this episode, actually. I'll be racing the Silver Rush, as will 3 more people in my close circle. My wife, Lisa, will be racing both the running and riding versions of this race for the Lead Woman series. My daughter, Melissa, will be racing with hopes of qualifying herself into the Leadville 100 this year, as well as getting a good fast corral. And her boyfriend, Jeff, who is already in Leadville 100, will be racing with plans to qualify himself into the Gold Corral. He's a fast kid.
Yeah, he is. Met him, really fast. But what are your aspirations for this race?
I am actually more invested in everyone else's goals. I'm in the Leadville 100 already, as you know, and I'm already in the Red Corral, which is definitely as good of a corral as I need, especially with the wave starts now. And on my best day in the Silver Rush, I could not get on the podium for my age group. It is, people my age, the guys in their 50s are still super fast. So for me, this is more about kind of a systems check. How my bike is my USWE pack comfortable for 5 hours? Is my food plan on point? How's my fitness? It's just kind of a good dress rehearsal for the big day.
And then I assume that the next episode will be talking about your Silver Rush race day.
Yeah, Hottie, I'd be astonished if we don't make it one of the central parts of the next episode, especially since the course this year is not going to be identical to last year's course. With all the snow still up on Bald Mountain, there's been a reroute, and at this point, a big piece of the race is kind of unknown to me, though I do understand it still has about the same amount of climbing as usual. There is one other thing I am excited about for this trip, though. In fact, I've been rushing around kind of getting it ready to go.
Does this have to do with a certain T-shirt I saw you posting about last Friday on Facebook?
Yes, it does. We've been working with my friends at DNA Cycling to create a Leadville podcast T-shirt. It is a really nice, soft, premium cotton / poly vintage blue shirt. And it features our very cool belt buckle shaped podcast logo right there for the whole world to see.
Vintage blue. I'm just glad it's not black. I have way too many black cycling T-shirts.
Yeah, so do I. For a while, it seems like we were all doing black all the time. And so this is more this vintage navy blue. Looks great. It's still dark enough to be slimming, though, which is important to me. I am hoping to see a lot of our listeners wear it in Leadville. I'm, of course, going to be wearing that shirt, or, I'm buying 3 for myself so that I can wear it the whole time I'm in Leadville, both for the Silver Rush and for the big race itself.
Yeah, it's a good-looking logo and makes a good-looking shirt as well. Yeah. And it's a good price, too. $20 even. None of this 1995 nonsense, and orderable right now in both men's and women's sizes. Plus, we've got a code for our listeners so you don't have to pay shipping.
Yeah, it really is a $20 T-shirt. I mean, not the plus shipping, etc. But if you live somewhere like in Utah where you have to pay taxes for it, we can't help that. Anyway, go to bit.ly/Leadville T-shirt. We're doing a lot of bit.lys right now. Mm-hmm. And at checkout, make sure you use the code podcast. One word, doesn't matter what case you use, and you'll get free shipping. And that's significant. Again, that's bit.ly/Leadville T-shirt. No dashes or anything, one word. Use the code podcast to get free shipping. Wear it in Leadville, and if Hottie sees it, he's going to rush up to you and give you a big giant hug.
Definitely not my way.
Come on, free hugs from Hottie, people.
Fatty, as you're getting ready for the Silver Rush, I'm starting to think about my role this summer as a crew member. I've done this before with some great results, but I'll have to say, Fatty, last show, hearing about how particular you are about your bottles and bottle cages and how squeezable bottles are and dripping lids and so on and so forth, I'm getting a little nervous. Please tell me the food choices will be straightforward.
I'm making you into an anxious crew. I am sorry. I have that effect on people. But let me promise you, there is nothing to worry about. First of all, most of my food is going to be in my bottles in the form of Morton, and you already know how to mix that. It's easy, it's fast, and it is perfect for me. I love this stuff. It is high energy, and it gives me great hydration together. And I can get up to 320 calories in one bottle in my cage, or in my 1.5 liter bladder, I can get close to 1,000 calories. So this is, a lot of the fuel I need, really easy to get to. Yeah, it just works great for me. It is, as we've talked about before, it's my real go-to for the big races, or any race for that matter. And I'm happy to say I get it all from my good friends at The Feed. There's, of course, going to be other food I will want, some Goo Energy Roctane gels, the Bonk Breaker bar that I always have at the starting line. But you don't have to worry. I will not have you up all night making me special sandwiches or fancy rice cakes or anything like that. Everything I need is available at The Feed, so you can rest easy.
Oh, thank you for that. It is worth noting, our podcast listeners can get a great price on a pack curated for Leadville racers, containing a lot of the items we just mentioned. Yeah. Go to thefeed.com/Leadville for our Leadville pack, and be sure to use the code Leadville15 for a 15% discount. You can also use that Leadville15 code for buying any amount of Morton at a 15% discount. Fatty, of course, will be using that. I'm going to be using that product when I do finally line up again during all of our races this year.
All right. Once again, that is thefeed.com/Leadville and use the code Leadville15 at checkout.
The Leadville Trail 100 is universally respected as a great race. It's hard to find anyone saying something negative about the LT100. But if you dig, you can hear stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the one thing I hear from mountain bike purists is that Leadville is not a mountain bike race because it is not technical, because it is mostly fire road. And Fatty, that is true, wouldn't you say?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of road for sure, but that still really gets under my skin when people say that, Hottie. Yes, there's, of course, pavement, and yes, there is graded dirt road, but there's also that Sugarloaf climb on the way out, and, of course, the descent on the way back. And then there's the narrow two-way trail on the Big Columbine climb and descent that is loaded with both loose and embedded rocks. And of course, there's the power line, which is not, as we've been led to believe recently, 4 miles of smooth graded road. There's, a half mile that's been newly graded, and the rest remains a technical mountain bike challenge, both down and at mile 80 up.
Mm-hmm. The first time I raced the LT100, I rode my mountain bike in training about once a week based on the premise that the race did not have a technical challenge. But that was a mistake, because while the course is not chock full of single track, there is some, but it's not full of single track, it will challenge your bike handling skills, and crashing avoidance skills is always a possibility on every section of the course.
Yeah, and that threat comes really early in the race as we finish the Sugarloaf climb and head down the power line section. That upper part is often dusty, and you've got sun in your eyes as well as dirt in your eyes, loose rock, tricky lines, and then, of course, there's speed and other racers there. Leadville is a mountain bike race, and it is a mistake to think it is some kind of technical joke.
So this season, we want to make sure we address what is an overlooked part of training and preparation for the LT100, and that is bike handling. And to help us, we turn to a man who has put a lot of time and effort into making mountain bikers better. His name is Lee McCormack, a mountain bike skills coach out of Boulder, Colorado. He's been working with riders since the early 2000s, was a member of the 2004 World Downhill Team. He was the skills director for NICA and an author of several books, including one with the great Brian Lopes. We caught up with Lee at Sea Otter, where he was demonstrating his new mountain bike training aid. We talked about it and what it takes to not only stay upright, but to turn sketchy situations into an opportunity for speed and a better time. All right, Leadvillers, here at Sea Otter, Michael Hottie along with Lee McCormack. Lee has actually personally taught me many of the mountain bike skills I still use today, and maybe has taught some of you. Lee is a professional mountain bike skills instructor. Yeah. He has many books on the topic. Mastering Mountain Bike Skills is the most notable. It's in its 3rd edition now. There are other books out there which we're going to talk about as well. But Lee, we want to first touch on the Leadville Trail 100, which is a course that is not known for its technical aspects. There is a piece of single track in there. But all in all, most people going into the race don't think, technical mountain bike race.
Right. It's not like BC bike race or something like that.
Not at all. And that may be a mistake, actually, because we should be thinking about skills. It can help us cut time, even on when we're talking about wide fire roads and just standard descents.
You know what? Actually, what strikes me is a wide fire road in a lot of ways is more difficult to ride well than a single track. Because on a single track, the main line gets worn in, and you can follow that line, and you can do okay, and there might be rocks and stuff, but as long as you have decent technique, that'll carry through. And I think in a lot of ways, riding dirt road is harder because it's more homogeneous, right? The turns aren't banked usually, and you really have to think about your lines. And I'm here to tell you that the line that you think is the right line, the line that all the sheep take, is the wrong line. It's going to be wrong, like 95% of the time. As an example, I just raced slalom yesterday, and out here, the amateurs go first. So the lines that burned in are not good lines. So right now the pros are up there practicing, and they're going to remake the lines. So
what should we be looking for when we're on some of these wider trails and wider, fast descents?
So, like, if you've ever done any car racing or motorcycle racing or ski, alpine ski racing, you might have heard the terms early apex and late apex. In an early apex, so by the way, the apex is the part of the turn where you cross closest to the inside of the turn. Does that make sense? So a turn doesn't have an apex. A human relating to a corner has an apex. So if you come in and you say, oh, a rock, you're going to turn around the rock, and you dive at the rock, you've crossed the apex early. And what that does is it forces you to finish the turn out on the second half of the turn. And in general, you lose speed doing that. And so a lot of you guys and girls will have the experience of diving into a corner, going, uh-oh, having to hit brake, and then having to go well above threshold to get out of the corner. And as you know, if you're going to go do how long does it take to do Leadville? Like 10 hours is pretty good, right?
Yeah.
If you're out there for 10 hours, how much time can you spend at 500 watts? You know what I mean? Like, not a lot, right? So the main line, this happens on single track too, that people take instinctively, it's like bad driving too, is the early apex line. And what you want to do, like when you're out there riding, is you want to hunt for late apex lines. So what that means is lining up wider than you're used to lining up. It would be like on the outside of the worn line, or if you really mean business, it would be well outside the worn line, knowing that like the median line is caused by median riders, right? And we of course don't want to be median in any area of our lives, right? We want to be extraordinary. So you're going to want to pull out wider than you think, get your braking done, initiate the turn, and then cross the apex. So rather than diving into the apex, then hitting your brakes, and then executing the turn and freaking out, and everybody's done the same thing, and the dirt's all skidded up. And by the way, if it's a switchback on a mountain pass, you have exposure, and you're freaking out about that, right? You're gonna come in wide, you're gonna brake emphatically, you're gonna execute your turn, and then and I used to race moto, when you cross the apex, if it's steep, you should be coasting. If you feel like going faster, you should be pedaling. When you cross the apex, you should be done with the turn. So that's good. That's a good practice.
I'm glad you brought up turning. I'm going to ask a very wide open question, which is how do we turn? And what I mean is, what do we do mechanically with our bodies and our bikes to make a bike turn? Lee's cringing a little bit.
Yeah,
but
I just made a face because it's like asking the key to a beautiful life. It's elegant, but it's not simple, right? You know what? Like I teach all kinds of people, right? And like if I was in person with you, I could teach you the deep kung fu of cornering, like how to not just make your bike turn, but how to make every corner an acceleration. You know, the most basic things to make a bike turn are: number one, you have to be balanced on your feet. And this applies everywhere. So the first most important thing you can do when you're out riding is please drop your seat. I highly recommend using a dropper post. It's a couple 100 grams extra, just get it. Drop your seat, have no weight on your saddle at all, no pinching the seat, none of that stuff, and zero weight on your hands. And you're gonna notice that most of the time when you ride, kind of like being on a road bike, there's weight on your hands. You'll feel pressure on your palms, and your massive triceps will be popping, right? That means your weight's too far forward. If when you're nervous, you're gonna feel pulling on your fingertips and in your biceps. When you're nervous, you're too far back. And so both of those are potentially catastrophic. So number one, when you're riding, this is a huge part of efficiency, is just maintain weightless hands, okay? And what that does is it drives your weight basically into the middle of the bike. It loads the tires, let's say 60% rear, 40% front, like an alpine ski. That's first for all riding, okay? And then for cornering, a lot of you have had the experience of your front tire just catastrophically washing out, right? And most of the time, that's from being too far back. And understand, right, that like if you're apprehensive, right, your instinct as a human being is going to be to push your head away from danger. It's like bad skiing, right? So you're going to go back, right? But when you do that, A, the front end's not able to turn organically the way it wants to, and B, you unload the front wheel, so that causes a catastrophic washout. So I'm just trying to make this point, like in all my books, it says it over and over again, in all my classes, heavy feet, light hands. If you have heavy feet and light hands, you stand a chance. Like you stand a chance to be okay. And when you're out all day, or if you're racing XC and your heart rate's out of hand, heavy feet, light hands is a great place to start. For cornering specifically, once you've achieved that, you probably, for like a normal turn, are gonna put all your weight on the outside foot. So right turn, left foot. And then all you need to do, this is a need. There's a lot of want to and cool stuff, but the need is to lean the bike below you, independently from you. If you can just create a lean angle and keep your hands light and be uninvolved with the saddle, your bike will turn.
So you're saying the bike should lean more than the body?
I'll give you two answers. Yes. The first answer is yes. The actual act of making a bike turn comes from leaning the bike. If do this, get your bike, okay? Put your hand on the saddle, lean your bike to the side, watch the handlebars flop, and then walk in a circle. And the bike will turn automatically and you will make a completely perfect 360. That's how a bike is meant to corner. So when you involve your hands, it gets in the way of the cornering. So just like skiing on a modern ski or snowboard, the cornering, like the proper carving, comes from setting the bike on edge. And you need the ability to adjust that angle, right, for different radii, or maybe you're gonna pass some fool, or whatever you're gonna do, right? So that needs to be independent from your body. And I'm gonna guess that all of you people, just because based on my experience as a teacher, are tying your butt to the seat. And your butt and hence your torso are leaning with the bike. Like that's like number one common, issue for roadies and dirt roadies. That's like the biggest issue.
There are at least two coming off Columbine and the Sugarloaf descent, and there's probably other smaller sections that are essentially rock gardens, not quite full-on rock gardens, but the descents are straight with traffic and quite rocky and fast, or you're trying to go fast at least. Give us some principles to live by when we're encountering that type of terrain. Speed and rocks and trying to make time.
All right, well, first of all, crashing is slow, right? So let's not crash. There's that. And so back to what I was saying, like your body position is key, and this applies everywhere, right? Like you want to have all your weight in your feet. You want to hinge. If you don't know what hinging means, this is what it means. So you know how when you're on a long downhill, and even though you're just like a super badass fit climber, you're on a downhill for 5 minutes and your quads start to burn. You know that one, right? And you kind of probably know what a shit show that becomes, because then you end up sitting down and everything just turns to crap, right? So you want to hinge, and what that means is be in your feet, push your knees back over your bottom bracket, and then roll your hips back. And so then what that will do is it will fold your torso to level, and you'll know you have it when you feel the stress in your hamstrings and your glutes. And you've seen pro cross-country racers do this when they're going down a downhill, and you ever see how their legs will be kind of straight and their quads won't have any tension and they're just bouncing around? They're in what I call high hinge. So you wanna get that hinge down. So it brings your shoulders low. So when your shoulders are low, you have range of motion. So you could, in most situations, go passive with your upper body and just Be in your feet, let the hands do what they want, and put the weight in your glutes. And if you do that, you're pretty good. Like that's like level 1, like good. And it's way better than clenching the seat, leaning back, clenching the bars, trying to like prevent your bike from dancing around. It's gonna dance. So that's level 1. Level 2 is pumping the terrain, which is like something that any BMXer or downhiller knows intimately. And you should all learn how to pump terrain, and we could go on. Like,
well, tell us how to pump terrain. I mean, I know this is another low. This is like, how do I turn? How do I pump terrain? And why is it beneficial for an XC guy who's just out there pedaling all day?
Well, first of all, to pump, okay, so you probably know what it feels like to just hold on and smash into terrain. You all know that, right? It's disruptive. Your adrenal system goes. It's inefficient, and that's not how you want to do a long race. You don't want to like pass into that like adrenal dump because it'll wear you out, right? And plus that's how you get hurt. So when we pump terrain at the very, very, very basic level, we manage the pressure between us and the ground. So you can imagine being like on a bathroom scale. This is really simplistic. Let's say none of you weigh as much as I do. So let's say you're 160 pounds, 5.5% body fat, right? That's maybe how you're built, right? So you're standing on the scale and you weigh 160. You can like load downward and let's say weigh 320. And then you can unload upward and weigh 0, right? If you're powerful, like BMX powerful or downhiller powerful, you can go 5x body weight or more. And so, for example, I generally will bottom my suspension out by cornering, because that's how much pressure I'll put into the bike. So, like you understand, like being on a bathroom scale or like on a trampoline, you have like that heavy light, and at the most basic level, you can look ahead and look for the trends of the trail. So you can be on a dirt road. And this is massively, massively common, right? You're out there and there's a corner with a water bar right before it, right after it, or right in it. You know what I'm talking about? Because they want the water to sheet off the road. So you know that when you hit that bump passively, it's disruptive. And right when you need to be like getting heavy and engaging with the ground to make the corner, the bike is upset, right? So like you want to teach yourself to load and unload through your feet. So that you're, instead of hitting these things, you're kind of like in phase with them. That will make you smoother everywhere. It'll make you faster everywhere.
Okay. So if the obstacle is a dip, describe the action.
So if the obstacle is a dip, simplistically, you would get, as you approach it, you get as low on the bike as you can. And this is where the dropper post is nice, because it'll give you like, let's say 100, 120, 150 millimeters of range of motion. You'll get as low as you can. You'll look forward. You're going to send your eyes level. Your eyes are not going to fall into the dip. You're going to push your feet down into the hole and then absorb the hole on the way out, right?
And then your upper body will stay as level as possible?
Exactly. Like everything from your pelvic floor to the top of your head, that's the sacred cargo. And we want that to go as level and straight as we possibly can. And here's a thought, right? Like all the computers and gyroscopes are in your head, right? And so anytime your head gets jostled around, that's when you start getting like that apprehension, like that panic reflex. And that just turns to more tension. It gets worse and worse. So we want to track straight as we can. So if it's a hole, you'll get low and you'll push into the hole and pull out of the hole with your feet. If it's a bump, you'll come in high, absorb the bump towards you, and then extend into the back side of it. But you're always going to be tracking with your feet. And like I'm telling you, that dropper post will buy you 4, 5, 6 inches of range. That's life. That's good stuff.
Back to our rock garden, let's try to mix the two. Or can we mix the two? Can we mix pumping and a fairly fast, rocky descent? Is that something worth pursuing? Yeah,
absolutely. Like your bike is going to hit these bumps one way or the other. If you're tense, it's terrible. Terrible. You know what that feels like. If you're relaxed, it's pretty good. It's better. But if you're engaged, it's a whole other level. And so like, this is a simple way to put this. But if you see the terrain coming at you, absorb it. If you see the terrain going away from you, push into it. And that's a big deal. And so then instead of those rocks disrupting you, throwing you over the bars, etc., you can work those rocks, and at one level of energy, you can just stay smooth, and that's great. At a higher level of energy, you can actually use those rocks to gain speed. And by the way, like as a cross-country racer, right, if it's flat-ish and bumpy, you can maintain an enormous amount of speed by pumping. And it's a different system, like in terms of your muscle use than pedaling. So that's good. You get a break. And also, you're not going to be stabbing pedals and rocks, which can be catastrophic. So pumping's a big deal.
Pumping can be free speed, in other words. You can use it to generate speed if you do it properly.
Absolutely. Exactly. Absolutely.
Since we brought up pedaling, Lee has also got in his books, Mastering Mountain Bike Skills specifically, an entire section on pedaling your bike, the proper pedaling techniques. Now, Leadville on its surface looks like one big long ride, and you just got to pedal.
Right, just
right?
do the work.
Just
do the work.
go to work, do the pedaling.
Right.
But what can we do to be better and save a lot of energy out there?
So my pedaling, I guess, approach is different from the traditional one. Pulling up on the pedals doesn't make much sense. Like, if you're in a BMX gate, which none of you are going to do probably, and you're at 0 RPM in a big gear, that first couple cranks, yeah, you can pull, right? But like anywhere in the zone of like whatever, 60 to 100 RPM where you live, it's immaterial. So the best thing we can do for pedaling is to lengthen the power phase. And that's the best thing you can do. And the way I highly recommend doing it is so imagine a clock. You've heard this, right? This is a lot. You've probably heard of ankling, right? The ankle motion. Like, well, what we do is well in advance of that, of the traditional ankling. So instead of pushing your heel down as you push down, try this out, right? Like, as your pedal crosses about 9 o'clock, the pedal is now going forward, isn't it? So, okay, if we want to coax the pedal forward, where should your foot be relative to the pedal? On top of the pedal? In front of the pedal? Where should it be?
Behind the pedal.
Yeah, exactly. And I promise you, yours isn't, right? So, and of course, this is easiest to learn at low RPM. Just a moderate climb is a good place to learn it. And practice dropping your heel and try to fire across the top. Like this is not easy to do, but when you get to 12 o'clock, you shouldn't say push forward. You should already be pushing forward. You should already have executed that pattern. And so, like, in terms of efficiency and like a place to focus, that's number one. And you can do it in your training on the trainer, on the road bike, on the mountain bike, train like crazy in that. And then when you're out in the field, and let's say your core starts to get tired and your pedaling is getting sloppy and you're just blowing energy out, go back to that. Like, that's a really good place to go back to. And one of the things it does a lot of things for you, right? It number one, like, you're putting energy in the direction the pedal's going, which is amazing. And if you guys get on flat pedals and just try to ride them, you're going to discover that at the top of the pedal stroke, you're pulling upward. And you're going to pull your feet off the pedal at the top. And you're going to be like, wait a second, like, how many years have I been doing this? Where did the hell the energy go, right? So you're going to be putting energy in the right direction, which is a huge win. You're going to be lengthening that power stroke, which of course erases the dead spot on the other foot. And the other thing this does, right, is when you can engage forward, you start to use a lot more hamstring and glute. And it's less quaddy. You can still use your quad on the other part of the stroke. And your glute is attached to your low back, right? So, like, when you do this and you're mindful, it becomes a lot easier to keep your core engaged because your glutes are part of your core, and to keep your hands light. And so that's a big deal. And again, like, when you're just out there and you're slumping on the bars, and you're just grinding and feeling miserable, just like brace your core a little bit and practice pushing forward. That's a biggie. And then the second one, once that makes sense to you, is when you pass 3 o'clock, which direction does the pedal start going?
starts going.
We know it goes down, but what else is it doing at 3
going
o'clock?
backwards.
It's going backward. So if your pedal's going backward, where should your foot be? In front of it?
No. You should be trying to get pointing the toe down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you want to get your foot in front of the pedal. So that's that point down. So like again, this is not tricky. Like most people when they ride, if they're quote mindful and they're quote ankling, at that point, like right there from 3 to 6 o'clock, they're generally dropping their heel through there. But again, like which direction's the pedaling going? Where's your energy going? So number one, get that heel down and push across the top. That's a big deal. Number two, when you're ready for it, is extend that heel, extend the foot between 3 and 6. And there's a huge amount of efficiency there, And then of course, and the third thing you'll do, and this is something not to do when you're racing, probably. This is something you do in training. And I live on top of a mountain, and I'm not a great climber. I just slog up this thing and I do this sort of thing. Like, see if you can get your brain to consciously drop one heel while you're consciously like extending the other heel. Like, so drop, yeah, exactly. Like flex one foot while extending the other, and feel the opposition there, and make the connection in your body of like, okay, like me dropping this heel, like and pushing across the top actually fuels. No, I'm sorry. Like me extending with my calf at the bottom fuels the catch on the other side, and then what you can start to do is feel that integration. And you can start to make a true circle.
Do you some people say to become a better pedaler, you should do high cadence drills. Are you saying, no, the opposite? Get on your bike and get on a climb and work on, because that's what they're going to face. Here's Leadville. Here's a lot of Leadville. You hit the St. Kevin's climb, which is the first climb of the day. It's generally going to be a lot of traffic. It's steep as you get near the top section of it. You're going to be dodging and changing speeds, low speeds, quite a bit. That's the exercise. That's in the end what you're going to need to do.
Okay.
What's the better way to arrive there from a pedaling standpoint?
Well, I think that pedaling is a skill, and this is something that I came to fairly recently, like when I had the kids, right? And I couldn't just go out and ride motocross all day and be a downhill dude all day. I was on my trainer, and that's when I really learned how to pedal, right? I would say this, to actually learn the skill, like the motor patterning of pedaling, it needs to happen at low RPM. You're not going to get it any other way. It just has to. Mm-hmm. By the way, if you do it on flat pedals, you'll gain a lot. Mm-hmm. I think that's where you gain like the mechanics of pedaling well, just like you would learn to pump better slow, right? And I think you'll do a mix of low cadence, like just skill work, like in terms of like motor, like just recruiting muscle and motor patterning, and this can be strength work too, right? And then learn to spin as fast as you freaking can. And I'm not talking about 100 RPM. I'm talking 120, 150, 200 RPM. Like teach yourself the neuromuscular efficiency to be able to spin massively fast in the seat without bouncing. And what that's going to do is that's going to myelinate that pattern and teach you to pedal. And what people do is they go out and they pedal at their natural cadence. For me, it's 70 RPM. That's what we do all day. But really, if you want to get good at it, you want to spend a fair amount of time, lower cadence, getting that grind on with perfect technique, and you want to get a lot of time at the higher cadence, as high as you freaking can. A BMXer can go 200 RPM. When I practice, I can go 200 RPM on flats, right? And that way, when you're out riding at your 60, 80, whatever your RPM is, right, your cadence, you're in the middle. And so you have a combination of like that low end strength and that like really fine like motor control of how to like get the firing sequence, and you have the high efficiency of the high RPM. I think that's where it's at.
I know you have some very strong opinions on bike setup, especially as it pertains to making us all better bike handlers. Now, you show up at Leadville and you're going to see a lot of long stems, low positions, carbon C-posts, not a lot of droppers there.
Right.
But I want to give you a chance to tell us why people should be thinking about a different type of setup for their bike so they can better manage the whole day.
That's fair. So I totally understand. I know intimately why cross-country race bikes get set up the way they do. It's the road tradition. The thought being that like, oh, well, like there's this perfect road position, and you heard the tone of my voice to switch, right? And that somehow is anointed and from God. And that, well, since I'm climbing and, you know, all that, and I don't really know about bike handling, I should set my mountain bike up the same way, right? First of all, right? Whether you have a 50 millimeter stem on your bike or a 150 millimeter stem, which some of you do, I used to have one. I used to race downhill on a 150 100 years ago, right? Like, whether you have a short or a long stem, when it comes to pedaling efficiently and powerfully, what matters is the angle of your hip and torso relative to the universe, right? It's like the amount of hinge you have on your seat. So in general, like if you want max torque, you're gonna stand up out of the saddle and your hips and torso are gonna be upright, vertical, just like a BMXer coming out of the gate or you single speeders do, right? When you're down in the saddle and you start to pedal harder, generally you're gonna hinge your hips more and go more to that like flattish back like you would on a road bike. A lot of times that stem is made long so you can have some arbitrary amount of arm bend when you're in that position. 8%, 15%, it's a static amount. When your cockpit is that long, you felt this, it's really hard to keep weight off your hands because your arms are cantilevered out there, and it's really hard. It puts a lot more stress on your core, right? And this is a big deal for mountain bikers. You've expressed most of your range of motion of your arms just to reach the damn handlebars. There's very, very little left for hard braking, for going down a rock, for going down a steep hill, or for cornering. So what's happened is you've made yourself a hunk of meat hurtling to an uncertain fate. Like you've lost the ability to control the bike dynamically. Let's have a thought experiment. What if you're like kung fu, I'm attacking, Michael Hottie on some climb, and so you're just on it and you're at your 500 watts threshold power, whatever you make, right? And your like torso angle relative to the horizon is gonna be 30 degrees, whatever, right? I'm gonna propose, right, that instead of your arms having like a 15 degree bend, that we shorten your cockpit and your arms have like, let's say a 30 or 40 degree bend. This is really important. Your pedaling power has not changed. What's happened is your arms are less cantilevered away from you, so it's easier and more comfortable. That's why beach cruisers are built the way they are, right? And every millimeter of shorter cockpit to a point is another millimeter of bike control. And so bringing that stem in at the simplest level gives you range of motion to brake, turn, go over rocks. And it's gonna give you a fighting chance. And then I go into crazy more detail about like the distance between your bottom bracket and your hands, and there being a perfect number based on your body style and size, and that facilitating peak torque and handling.
Well, if you were to show up, suddenly said, Lee, you got to race a Leadville Trail 100, pick a bike. What would basically your bike look like, do you think, based on what I've told you about the race?
I think for me, well, okay, it would depend on my mood. I'm a pretty decent bike handler. Well, yeah.
You're a very good bike handler.
Yeah, okay. If I was really worrying about like a good result, I have a I guess it would be considered an all mountain hardtail that it's carbon. It has plus tires on it. It has a Trust the Message fork, badass fork, by the way. I would probably put a set of 29er wheels on that thing. And since I know how to corner and I know how to generate traction, I would probably run the fastest tires I could get. That's if I wanted to do really well in the event. Mm-hmm. That's what I would run. Mm-hmm. If I was out there just to have more, just to do it and be more in my comfort zone, I'd run a short travel suspension bike, like a stump jumper short travel. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't run an Epic. I wouldn't do it. Yeah.
Very interesting. Now,
by the way, I wouldn't change my stem. My body wants a 750 millimeter bar. That's the width I run on any bike. It's based on my proportions and my shoulder situation. And I would not change my stem. I'd be running a 35 millimeter stem. But what I might do you guys remember bar ends from back in the day?
Yeah.
There is a space between your grip and your brake lever that fits a bar end perfectly.
Oh, not outboard, but inboard.
It's a bar in.
Bar in.
It's a bar in. And I didn't get the memo about being cool, so I would run bar ins. And if you put them there, you're going to be like, wait a second, this is where the hoods on my road bike are. Mm-hmm. And that's what I would do.
Coming up in our final segment, Lee is going to talk about crashing.
Oh.
I know. It's a topic none of us want to talk about, but Fatty, I believe you have taken a tumble at Leadville, have you not?
Yeah, more than once. I've actually hit the deck 4 times doing the 23 starts that I've had with this race. And one of those times, it actually ended my race for the day.
So it could happen, and the point is, be prepared to protect yourself, but especially be prepared to protect your head.
Oh, yeah.
We'd like to take a look, or we'd like you to take a look at laser helmets if you're in the market for a helmet, and even if you're not. Go have a look at laser helmets for your head protection. This company is part of the Shimano family, which, of course, Shimano sponsors this show. But long before that, back when many pros were still wearing cycling caps, Laser got together with Eddie Merckx to design real head protection. And despite being part of Shimano, Laser is still in Antwerp, Belgium, designing and testing bike helmets. They have a line of 30 helmets. I've been wearing the Z1 with MIPS. Fatty, weird thing about reviewing helmets, though, the only way to tell if it is a great piece of protection is to crash out. Now, I have not slammed my Z1 into the ground, but what I can say about this helmet is that the Laser with MIPS and their T-prop temple protection at least gives me peace of mind that it will have a fighting chance should something go wrong.
Well, I hope nothing does go wrong. But I will say that there are some comfort things with it that are really smart before you ever do crash. And that is the advanced roll system, which is a great feature that my wife, aka the Hammer, has really found that she loves. She wears a ponytail, and the way the roll system works is it tightens and loosens horizontally and vertically. And because that the dial, sort of a rolling knob, is on the top of the helmet, that makes it easy for there to be room out back for a ponytail to make a comfortable exit without having to pull it through part of the helmet retention system. And Lisa loves that, and the laser she has is her absolute number one go-to helmet now.
Normally, for our Shimano mention, we send you to bike.shimano.com, but Laser is not there. They are part of the Shimano family, but they maintain their own website. So go there to lasersport.com, check them out, and try not to crash.
Yeah, try not to crash. Never test out your helmet unless you got to, right?
That's right.
With that said, let's get back to Lee, and we'll pick up at a precarious moment. The bike is skidding, or you've blown out a corner, or someone has cut you off. What now?
We're going to get to your RIP Row device here in a second, and conditioning in general in a minute, but I just want to add, one thing we talk about on the show quite a bit is when things go wrong. And since I'm talking to a mountain bike skills guy, when things go wrong, when I sense I might fall over, crash, I might slide out, the obvious reaction, the human reaction, is to cinch up and tighten up. What do you tell people in those situations when you know something's about to go wrong? What I'm asking is crashing, and I know you've written about this in your book. How do I? If I have a second to think about, what do I do?
Are we going to deal with how do I make this crash not happen, or are we going to deal with how do I let this crash propagate and not hurt me?
Yeah, let's start.
Which are we talking about?
If we can do both, that'd be great. Let's start with A. How can I prevent?
Body position, body position, body position, body position. When you get into pipeline and there's people, right? you're going to instinctively go high and far back, and you will crash, by the way. You're just rolling. Remember Dungeons and Dragons?
Yeah.
You're rolling a 20-sided die, and 20 is going to come up, and you're going to freaking crash. So you got to get in the hinge. You have to get in that low hinge. And whatever you think is low, the right place is significantly lower. You need to pattern the shit out of your low hinge. You have to.
And let me interrupt here real quick, because I was just on your Rip Row device, and we're going to talk about that again and talk about that in a second. You mean, when you say low hinge, that doesn't mean lower your butt down, but hinge
you need to,
from your hips, right? In other words...
Yeah, so you need to take your pelvis on top of your femur and rotate it forward so that your sacrum is parallel with the horizon. And since your core is engaged, right, always... Your torso has come level. That's a hinge. And you get as low as you can.
So not a squat, but a hinge.
Not a squat. By the way, if your seat's up, there is no squat. If your seat's up, it's not even possible. If you're Nino Schurter, you watch that guy. He has a hinge. And there's a legendary story of him showing up with a bunch of pro downhillers in the Laguna Beach downhill trails. And he showed up, full kit, high seat, long stem. And the DH guys are like, dude, you got to drop your seat. And he's like, screw you guys, I can do everything you do with my seat high. And he did. Mm-hmm. But that boy has a perfect hinge. Mm-hmm. So you need to hinge. The hinge will keep you balanced and give you a chance with the range of motion to let things happen. That needs to be so ingrained in you that it becomes your instinct when shit goes wrong. Mm-hmm. And like you can do that F6 program, that book. The Rip Row, of course, is the best way I can conceive of to hinge. Do deadlifting. When you pick up a child's toy off the ground, don't squat hinge. Like, you need to make hinging your absolute instinct, and that will save you from most things.
Mm-hmm. Again, folks, hinging is not squatting. It is moving at your hips and actually loading your hammies and your posterior chain.
Yeah, and like based on my experience with human beings, pros included, 98% of you don't have a hinge. Mm-hmm. Like if we were in Thailand or in Africa somewhere, those people all have hinges because culturally that's how they move. Mm-hmm. Americans, Westerners, we squat. And you may have noticed, and there's a lot of variables, but you might have noticed, man, my knees are starting to give out. Or man, my low back has a lot of problems. Your hips are supposed to do the bulk of everything. But when your hips aren't mobile, hamstrings tight, the stress goes to your knees and low back. So you want to learn to hinge just as a human being who wants to not have back pain, right? But this is an instinct you need to have, and it's going to take a lot of cycles. The older you are, the more trail trauma you have, and this is important too, the more intelligent you are, the more like analytical you are, the more reps it takes.
Yep, that's for sure. Now, the crash is inevitable. We're going down. Give us anything to help mitigate this situation.
All right, you need to get away from your bike. Like, there's a moment where it becomes unrecoverable. You need to get away from your bicycle. Okay? You need to then not hit the ground stiff with your arms straight. That's how you break collarbones. Yeah. Like, you're gonna hate this, but like, if you were really, really stoned, out of your mind, you'd probably be fine.
It's true.
Because you're loose and you're grooving and you're gonna be fine. Like, people might not want to hear this, okay? But like, this is an instinct. And we're talking about milliseconds here, right? All you people, get on the ground and do a somersault. Just get on your hands and knees and do a somersault.
Mm-hmm. That's how you want to go down.
Can you do one?
Well, there's a lot of dirt and rock here. I don't know if
I'm not
want to do
asking you
it.
specifically. I'm asking the audience. Get on carpet or grass. Can you do a somersault? A lot of you can't. Or a lot of you are going to feel really timid and like not want to commit to that. Mm-hmm. That's a problem. Yeah. Can you stand and then do a forward roll? Probably not.
Probably not.
Can you walk into a forward roll?
No way.
Can you run into a forward roll?
No.
So what the is going to happen when you lose your front end and you're going 18, 20 miles an hour? Like, what's going to happen?
Or worse, on Columbine, you're going 30 plus.
What's going to happen?
Bad news.
And so you know, the lizard who runs your body knows that you don't have that movement pattern as an instinct. It knows that. So it's going to do everything it can to prevent that from happening, which is tension, leaning back, fear, negative thoughts. But then what causes crashing? Those things. So, I mean, dude, like you asked me, you asked me the question. You are not going to prevent crashes unless you have a frickin' rock solid, beautiful riding position, which is a hinge. And that's not going to happen unless you practice it. Dude, how did you all get good at pedaling? How many hours of pedaling have you done in your life? Right? Like, come on. Like, I used to ride my road bike. I rode 200 miles a week commuting, plus on the weekends. I was getting 300 miles a week, which is a lot. And so yesterday, at the last 100 meters of that slalom track, it's dead flat. And you know who outsprinted everybody? I did. Because I put the frickin' time in, right? Yeah. So, like, you're not going to have a low hinge unless you practice it, dude. And you're not going to have this kung fu roll out, like, forward roll unless you've practiced it. The best time to learn is when you're a little kid. My girls, since they were, like, 2, tumbling tots, gymnastics, all that, they have it. And I have it when I need it for the most part. And if you were to go out and add this to your routine, like the book has a progression, right? Somersault, forward roll, walking to a forward roll, running to a forward roll. And I haven't done this in a long time, but I really should, Mike. We would go on grass and we would ride our bikes pretty fast, 15, 20 miles an hour. And we would unclip and hop off the bikes and throw them away and go into a forward roll, come out of it, and continue running. We would practice that.
Really?
That was the thing we practiced.
Well, I'm glad I didn't practice riding with you. I'll stick to the skills clinic with Lee.
Yeah, but but that's taking it to the limit, right? It's like, but honestly, like if you don't have a somersault in you or a forward roll in you, you're asking for it, man. You really are. And I'm going to say this too, right? I was a fat kid, for real. I became a competent road rider way before I became a competent mountain bike rider. Because all I had to do was commute, right? And then the pounds came off and the fitness came on. And I took road riding as seriously as my physiology and temperament would allow me to, right? Some of you aren't going to like this, but here's my truth, because I coach people for a living, and I've seen like 7,000 people now, right? Like in an environment like we did, right? Mm-hmm. You can have no athletic awareness, no kinesthetic awareness, no dynamic power, no, quote, athleticism, and ride a road bike and get fit and become an athlete. And that's beautiful and wonderful. And if that's what you have, do it. Because I did it, right? But don't confuse that with the athleticism that's required to ride a bike well. Peter Sagan, pro roadie, that guy can ride a bike, right? Nino Schurter, pro cross-country guy, that guy can ride a bike. And so you guys I understand you need to be an engine for what you're doing. I totally get that, right? But you need to train efficiently, and I highly recommend taking some of that mental bandwidth and applying it to your athleticism as a human being and your ability to ride a bicycle.
Good, because that gets us to our next topic, which is, first of all, Lee has written a lot of books. We sat here before we started recording and tried to count them all up. Even he and I had a problem, and I own most of them. He has 2 great books on training that I love, Pump Up the Base and Prepare to Pin It. Those have great interval sessions in them. He also has a fantastic weightlifting workout book called F6. It's mostly band and cable weight lift stuff.
Yeah, it's like band. All you need for the F6 is I made that for a mountain biker who doesn't want to go to the gym, who's time crunched, who needs to learn a hinge. So all you need for that is a band and some object,
like milk jugs.
A milk jug, or if you have a dumbbell, And if you look at that, you're going to see a lot of hinging. You start on 2 feet, you go to 1 foot, and that's good practice.
But your most amazing invention, not a book, but a product. It's called RipRow. This is your kind of your latest thing going on right now.
Yeah.
It's obviously you're not going to find this in every gym, but if you can get on a RipRow, this is going to help you with your hinge. I think a lot of other things Leah's just talked about. Describe what the RipRow is, what it can do for people.
Okay, so it came from my work as a skills coach, and simultaneously, my shoulders have become deteriorated to the point where they need to be replaced. Right, and so, but I'm too young for that. Like, it's funny. I met a rep for a company that makes the shoulder appliances, and at first he was in a class. He's like, "Dude, we're gonna sponsor you." I was like, "Are you serious? That's the best sponsorship ever!" Like, hell yeah. But like, he saw me ride, and he said, "No, dude, you don't want this. Keep your shoulders as long as you can." Right. So like, simultaneously, I was like coming up with like the shoulder issue, and I was like, just like good pedaling, there has to be a way to move perfectly so I can preserve my shoulders. There just has to be, right? And then also, like, I had my ideas of bike setup started to happen. You know what I mean? And my ideas of physical training and patterning for riding. And so the RipRow came from that. So like, imagine, okay, you can stand on a platform and it can rock side to side. There are slots. You can put pedals on it if you're up for that, and balance on the balls of your feet in a pedaling position, left foot forward, or you'd be smart to practice switch stance, right foot forward. Right between your feet, where the bottom bracket of a bike is a pivot. And then there's basically the front half of a bike frame on this thing. And it's extendable, so you can adjust it for your size. And then there are hydraulic dampers that control the forward and backward resistance. So you get on this thing and you hinge, and you control your balance, and then you work the bars back and forth. So this machine, in one sense, it's the world's first, we have a patent, it's the world's first upright rowing machine, and it has pull and push resistance. Believe it or not, there's not one fitness machine in the US that's patented that has both pull and push resistance. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
So this thing does all that. It'd be like if you use a rower, this is better because you're on your feet balancing, it's all core. But from a riding standpoint, this teaches you the fundamental movements of, let's say, like getting up a technical climb, or sprinting, or cornering, or pumping terrain. Like this, like you're getting a full body workout. You could do threshold work on it. You can do, super threshold work on it. You can do strength work on it. But what's cool is every single rep you get is motor patterning for riding your bike. And it's pretty profound. And I've had every chance to think, oh, this is a bad idea and move on. But it works. And here's an example. Like, I haven't ridden a mountain bike basically since October, right? Like, my body was just like, dude, you're done. Like, no more pedaling for a while. And I spent the winter heavy duty on my RipRow. And I just came out yesterday and I beat one of my frickin' old pro idols, Yeah. So the patterning's there, it works. And the core strength, dude, oh my God.
So most of the stuff you talked about today, minus maybe pedaling,
happens
leaning the bike, hinging, light hands, heavy feet, all that stuff can be emphasized on the RipRow?
Yeah, you can learn it. And I think you guys should have fun out there, and whether you buy a RipRow or not, I just want you to have fun and rip it up, have at it, right? But the RipRow will pattern that shit. Like I said, before the crash starts to propagate, be in the right position. And so when you're on the RipRow, here's a statistic for you. So we have an app, so you can get Rip Watts, we call them. You can get power. You can count reps. When we do fitness classes on RipRows, and when I do one class, I'll get 1,100 reps in a class, 1,100. So if you believe, let's say, that 10,000 is a magic number for skill acquisition, you can get really, really good at shredding a mountain bike really fast. And your core and your hips and your hamstrings just get so strong, like that you can hold a hinge basically indefinitely.
Yeah, it's a great product. I spent a little time on it myself, and really it starts ingraining a lot of things Lee and I just talked about. In a matter of minutes, I was like, oh, I'm squatting too much. I need to hinge more. I mean, it started just showing that stuff.
I heard that when I walked up. I heard you say, oh man, this gets you out of your quads into your hamstrings. And I was like, yeah!
Exactly it. So Ripro, again, you can buy this. You can have this at home. It's showing up in gyms now, I understand.
It is. It's starting to show up in gyms.
That's cool. It's a great item to have. If you can't afford one, go pester your local gym. Tell them to get them a Ripro.
Yeah, that's fair.
So again, we're going to go over, we learned a lot here from Lee. We covered a lot of ground today. We could probably go on forever.
Right.
LeeLikesBikes.com is the website. That's where you post all your skills clinics. You do those year-round in various locations, plus in your home of Valmont.
In Boulder, yeah.
In Boulder.
And it's not unusual. Like, you want to get your skills as soon as you can, but a lot of people, when they come to Leadville, they'll come in and see me on the way into Boulder.
And that's cool. They can do that?
Yeah. And then we'll give you something to think about. And I always get the reports of like, oh man, I was tired and I did what you told me and it was great, So there's lots of options.
Yeah, okay. So you can check them out in Colorado if you want to swing through there and schedule a session with Lee.
Yeah.
Again, LeeLikesBikes.com. The book, I think, Mastering Mountain Bike Skills. If you can't get to see Lee, get your hands on a copy of that. It's in the 3rd edition.
And the other thing that's more modern and better is I have an online school. There's a link to that at LeeLikesBikes.com. That's a good one. Nothing beats in-person instruction, but the mountain bike school has massively detailed information and calculators about bike setup, handlebar width, stem length, frame size, all that, right? It's all there, and it has like my teaching method, and of course, unlike the book, it has videos.
Cool.
Just
remember, folks: light hands, heavy feet.
Yes.
Hinge. Work on that pedaling stroke. Smile. Lean that bike. Brap.
Yeah, rip it up. Have fun, you guys.
You know what's weird about us mountain bikers is that for as much skill that's required to get down some of these trails, few of us actually take lessons. I mean, skiing, which, I don't know, doesn't seem any harder than mountain biking, as beginning skiers, most of us get a lesson or two. But mountain bikers, Fatty, seem to forego the instructor and head straight for the trail.
Yeah, that's really true, especially for us oldsters, Hottie. But I should say that Lee's riding principles are really sort of propagating, filtering out to the young riders in high school mountain biking, like NICA, like you're talking about earlier in today's show. A lot of coaches have taken his seminars and then they pass on their learnings to the kids they coach. And it really shows, too. They are, I guarantee it, they will be outriding us in every possible way in the next generation.
So again, thanks to Lee McCormack. If you can, get to one of his skills clinics. Check them out at LeeLikesBikes.com. The Ripro we were talking about is another thing worth looking into. Check it out at ripro.com. And if nothing else, get the Mastering Mountain Bike Skills book by Lee McCormack. Links to all this stuff at our home website, Leadville100podcast.com.
There's still a lot of stuff for us to check out before Leadville Race Day, Hottie. But this one for sure, hanging onto my seat rails will be a Banjo Brothers seat bag. I love this small, tight but tidy, but still big enough for more than just my flat essentials. I've got tire levers, I've got the CO2, I've got the chuck, I've got the tube, I've got a tiny little, essentials toolkit. Got everything I need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can get a lot in those small seat bags. That's the size that Fatty uses.
Yep.
But if you need to carry less or more, Banjo Brothers has all sorts of seat bags to accommodate. They have a mini, which is 33 cubic inches. The small that Fatty uses is 40 cubic inches. The medium and large are expandable bags. The large sounds like you could practically put a stowaway inside it. Banjo Brothers says when it's expanded to its fullest, in addition to flat essentials, a rider can fit tools, snacks, a wallet, a camera, or even a spare vest. Now, that's some capacity.
Oh,
so get over to Banjo Brothers and grab a seat bag.
Yep, and you can get 15% off that order by going to banjobrothers.com/fatty-favorites. Banjo Brothers is tough, it's practical, and it's affordable. They're based in Minneapolis, and they've been in business since 2003. They are just good guys. Once again, get 15% off your order by going to banjobrothers.com/fatty-favorites.
Fatty, we've been talking up the Envy M525 wheel set this entire season, and with good reason. But there's something brand new about this wheel set that I think is going to make a bunch of our listeners write a check to Envy ASAP so they can get rolling on them by Leadville time.
Yeah, I think I know exactly what you're talking about, Hottie. It is the new price of those wheels. The bottom line for an NV525 wheel set up until this point was right at $3,000. Now you can get one for right at $2,100. And that is going to put them in reach for a lot more racers. And I got to say, I love the latest generation of 525s with the i9 101CL hubs. They are really good wheels, and that rim pairs so nicely with that hub. Legendary Envy quality at a much easier to reach price point.
And it's been an axiom for cyclists for a long time that if you're going to upgrade one thing on your bike, make it your wheels. You can learn more about all of Envy's wheels and components, many of which seem they're made with the Leadville 100 in mind, but which can handle pretty much anything you throw at them on any terrain at Envy. That's ENVE.com. Okay, let's wrap up Season 2, Episode 17 of the Leadville podcast presented by Floyd's of Leadville. If you like our little show, give us a 5-star rating and review over at Apple Podcasts. Also, share it with your other cycling friends. And please support our sponsors. Let them know you appreciate them making this show possible. Meanwhile, if you have ideas or questions for us, head to the Leadville100podcast.com website, comment section, and get in touch.
Yeah, and also follow us on Twitter. I am at Fat Cyclist. Hottie is at Michael Houghton. And you can find us on Facebook, where we are both very active in the Leadville 100 MTB participants group.
Good luck in your training. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next month in Leadville.
But only if we recognize you because you're wearing one of our t-shirts, which you can, of course, get at bit.ly/Leadville t-shirt and use that code podcast for free shipping and a free hug from Hottie.
Another plug, but sorry, no hugs.
What if they pay you an extra couple bucks? Then you'd give them a hug.
Sorry, no hugs.
Well, I'll hug them.